Welcome to the Myofascial Magic in Action podcast. And this is episode 5 in our series on myofascial magic in action protocols, training, the 5 R's. This is the 5th R, refine. And I just want to say that for our audio listeners, this episode includes video clips from the training program directly. So if you want to see what Paul and I are referring to, please hop over to the YouTube channel, Joanne.Avison, and you will find the videos there. So we really look forward to you being able to participate and understand some of the background of what we're talking about. So this episode, refine, the 5th R. We've done rebound, we've done recoil, we've done release, we've done restore, and this is refine. And what we're going to explore today is that refinement is not actually about doing more. It's not about performing better, although that is a natural outcome. It's the default. But it's to really explore why perception is the real skill. And with me, as always, to explore this and demonstrate and talk about it is my very, very dear friend and beloved colleague, Paul. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Joanne, nice to see you again, love.
So, Paul, the myth that we all live under, that refined movement comes from repetition, from technique, from doing more of the same till you're better and better at it. I know mimicking and practicing are keys, but also there's a kind of a magic point, isn't there, where refinement becomes repetition and repetition becomes repetitive strain, injury. So I think what we're really doing is reframing that refinement comes from perception rather than repetition. So you always talk about it as it's what it is that the body already knows what to do, but we override it. How would you explain that to your clients and your teachers that you're teaching?
Yeah, well, you can't fake good movement. You're either good at it or you're struggling to achieve something inefficiently. And all too often we enter our training establishments and we're guided by various practitioners and trainers and instructors and teachers to meet a certain expectation within a certain modality or sporting activity. And as we try to follow those guidelines, of course, there is time served and experience gained by being there. And of course, there is repetition of doing it often. However, what gets often lost in the mix and that attained skill is recognizing feeling. Because we're always trying to override what we think we feel rather than what we should be experiencing during feeling. So what that means is often people do lots of repetitions. They get very good at doing it quite badly because you can repeat anything any way you want to do it, right? But good, bad, or indifferent, the way you do it will be the way you become competent at doing something maybe incompetently. So it's really important that you recognize what direction of quality you're aiming for and that you're not utilizing momentum so much or force to achieve efficiency. Now, not that you don't have force and you don't have athleticism inefficiency, but that is exactly the point, that our movement should appear effortless, but that effortless is attained by doing something with refined skill and refined sensory feedback. So you know that you can anticipate, recognize, and make the appropriate alterations so that your movement is as efficient as possible, as often as possible.
I think also we are talking about refinement as removing interference, because I think in yours and my experience in our respective fields, most people do tend, do they not, to overcoach and to overcorrect. But the other side of that, the other extreme can be that we hijack the client's experience by having a repertoire that it's almost a script. And we don't mean that either, do we? Because in both of these cases, the actual self-perception, which is what proprioception means, one's own self-perception, becomes the missing skill. So I know we're going to go into this in depth with some examples in a minute, but it's actually, we've discovered, I mean, both of us have been teaching in the field now for more than 35 years, that we're discovering that this how you hold self-perception for your client and encourage them to discover it without just going off down a rabbit hole that doesn't serve them is quite a skill.
Well, it's a skill not only for the practitioner, the person taking part, but it's really a skill for the tutor, the teacher, the one who's trying to educate or impart knowledge to somebody else. And it requires time and experience of how well you're able to do that. But that then bears the question, do they know their topic well enough to be able to deconstruct it in a way that they can share it with a variety of learning styles? Because people learn differently, don't they? So very kinesthetic, people need lots of palpatory, people often need to just feel it. But it's just all this overwhelming urge to just do it all the time. And it's in the just doing it where they feel like they've achieved something. But all too often they do it poorly and a lot just to achieve repetition or to attain the repetitions and the experience of doing it frequently, that's good enough. And unfortunately, what that does, like we say, your body doesn't care how you do it. It will hardwire your approach. So we're always trying to bring it back and slow the pace down and slow the dosage down. So we micro-organize the micro experience. So it's micro refined so that you can then macro play without the consequences of poor repetitive strains accumulating in poor, incompetent practice.
And also, it's not a mental exercise. I say this every day, I think, that movement is not an intellectual process. It's not about thinking about the movement. It's about creating a facility whereby the body just naturally enjoys that movement, right?
Well, all movement should be joyful, right? If we only approach movement on a fear basis, because I can't do it, or it must hurt, or I must achieve it, or I've failed, or I take myself to failure, then it's just bound around negativity. And movement should be joyful and playful and exploratory and curious. And it's through that. And again, we go back to that word, proprioception, that perception of one's own awareness to your location and your dynamic involvement with your environment is so important. And it's self-learned. But that comes through feeling and anticipation, and almost intuitive. But intuitive interactions and responses take time to refine. Like a violinist knows how to hit just the right note at just the right time. A jiu-jitsu practitioner knows just the right grip, just the right amount of pressure to redirect energy. Like a carpenter knows just the right amount of pressure and tool to carve or sculpt something. Anything skillful is acquired over decades of experience of doing it skillfully and not becoming the victim of an incompetent attainment of that skill where they've overwhelmed themselves or they've tried to overperform or overindulge in something where they get really good at doing it badly, but it's good enough for the time.
I think this is such a key, Paul, because one of the things I come across a lot, I know you do too, is people chase better technique, but they're chasing a technique as if it's separate from their experience, where we've got like more reps or more control or doing the count. You know, you've got to do 100 of these. And there's the quality of what's being done gets sacrificed for the getting to the right number to tick the kind of quantity box rather than the quality. And sometimes we even get the idea that more instruction improves the outcome. No, it's like, I don't know how to say this, but it often makes movement more rigid and more repetitive, but not more refined. And then you and I end up dealing with repetitive strain injuries on our bodywork table, which we're so passionate about.
Avoid it.
People not as experiencing. We'd so much rather. And here's the thing, it's actually not that difficult. It's like we've learned to simplify this process, and that's what we've put into Myofascial Magic in Action over decades and decades of stripping it down to the bare essentials and getting people to undo the dysfunctional work and literally drip feed this exquisite ability that every one of us has, no?
Yeah, I mean, we like we say, you're allowed to move good, you know. There's no reason you have to struggle.
That's pure Wiganese, Paul. I've got to stop you. You're allowed to move good, you know.
Well, yeah, like who wants to applaud bad, over-aggressive, over-achieving work for what benefit? Like if you're seeking to hurt yourself, that's easily achieved in any environment. We can always overdo something, right? But the phrase "do less to achieve more" means something. Do it as efficiently as you can, so you can do it as often as possible. Matters in a long life. Like we've said this on every single podcast, every interaction. We're designed to live 90 years, give or take a decade, as well as we can. And those years should be done through a quality of lifestyle. And we can influence the quality that we enjoy each of those years, depending on how we explore the quality of our movement, our quality of our nutrition, the quality of our environment, and the people we associate with. And we should filter that throughout our life, shouldn't we? So we always retain the best elements of it and deal with the worst elements as least as possible, but there'll always be elements that we can't get rid of. There's always movements we find difficult. There's always people we find uncomfortable to be around. There's always a place we don't really want to go and visit, but sometimes we just do. But the vast majority of our life and our movement and our experiences should be pleasurable, something we look forward to, something that we're excited about. And that comes out of really attaining a quality approach. And that's what refining is all about, getting good at it, getting good at doing it, getting capable and competent and athletic and strong and resilient, and maintaining that longevity of choice to keep doing something, whatever that something happens to be in your movement choices.
Exactly. And I think one of the precursors of all of this to get those results, and God knows you and I weep with broken athletes and broken performers who are too young to be dealing with the problems they've got in our feeling, just because they've been overworked, they've overdriven, the timing, that actually before you do any of that high performance work, there is this place for a kind of a baseline to have a look at what refinement actually looks like. And in this first clip, we're going to focus on subtlety, we're going to focus on ease, and we're going to focus on absence of effort. And what is not happening is there's no fighting, there's no straining, there's no inducing that defensive reaction to achieve. And actually, I loved this part in the training because I ended up being the model for this. And obviously, as a result of my surgeries, I had extensive damage to the nerves in my right arm. And it was one of those moments where I thought it would be an outtake, where I actually got so moved at the transformation that was afforded me through such subtle movement that you said, no, keep it in, because it's one of those real life moments with what really happens. Do you want to talk us through what happened in this clip where you're working with my arm?
Well, it's exactly that. You've hit the nail on the head. Anything with quality is done subtly. It's almost as if it's unexplainable. Like quality of positioning and quality of using your own natural strength, it should look invisible. It's like an invisible quality that just emerges because you need it to occur in the given moment. It shouldn't look like you're setting yourself up to work hard or to achieve a strenuous activity. I mean, sometimes that's necessary, right? Sometimes we have to get ready and grit our teeth and go for it. But the vast majority of times, we should have the capability and the control and the confidence to organize ourselves so that we just can do tasks instinctively. Now, when we position our arms to push a cupboard or lift something or grab something, our arm ends up in front. But often we don't recognize that it's been inappropriately positioned, where it's often at its weakest. It's not positioned in such a way that it's able to tolerate or distribute energy efficiently through it or from it. And that's what's happening in this clip, as you see you with your arm out, and I just give you some pressure to resist, to see how capable your arm, which has gone through a huge amount of trauma as well because of the predicament you ended up in, God bless you. And then we wanted to see how it responded. And then I gave you the subtlety, and I put your body, almost like I say, it's like an invisible skill. Because once you know how to do it very quietly and very subtly, it doesn't require a huge amount of force. It just needs an invitation. But you invite the bones to go in the right position so they can collaborate well, and you literally become 1,000,000% more capable instantly. And knowing that that's possible is what transforms people of hope. So their expectation can rise exponentially, because when will I get stronger? When will I recover? Will this ever heal? Will I be able to perform to my best? The answer to all of those things should be yes. Without weeks and months and years of training to get there, yes, there will be weeks, months, and years to follow. But if each time we're able to put ourselves in a much better position so that we have better collaboration of ourselves, then the movement becomes skillfully, athletically capable without the consequences of inefficient, incompetent movement.
And it's remarkable, isn't it? Because I know we often talk about the fact that there's always a I talk about the knot in the net where something happens, that as that released and I found myself so naturally able to do it with the tiniest of
Yeah.
cues, it was like whispering. And I really had to hold it together. I was so moved. It was just
Because it can
brilliant.
take your breath away, can't it? When
It really
something is
does.
given to you and you weren't expecting it, because I know it's not your field, it's something I've acquired over my own training, and now I share it with everybody. But it literally is just recognizing where something is just not quite right. It's like a key on a piano is just not quite in tune. And the moment you
Yeah.
just tune it, then the sound is completely different and it needs just the tiniest retuning. Well, the same with us. And all you need me to do was put my hand in a certain position. I asked you and invited you just to move towards it. So you increase contact at the back there. And that tiniest motion changed everything. It changed everything from your toenails to your teeth and your arm in
Yeah.
between. And you became incredibly capable immediately. And once you were able to experience that and go, oh my God, I am more than capable. I'm not this winged warrior that has now got to protect and I'm unable or I'm
Broken
going to be
wing.
broken, right? That I am, oh my God, I can still attain things. I can still utilize it. It's not become like a limitation. I'm not disabled. And it must be so relieving to feel that after what you personally have gone through. That was not my intention. My intention was to show you how you can become stronger. But your experience was, oh my God, and a revelation of, oh my God, I'm not so injured I can't recover and still thrive with this arm.
What was amazing about it actually is that obviously it was through the MMIA micro movements that I'd originally set myself after the surgery where my wing was broken. I mean, it's extensive surgery and there was extensive damage and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought I'm going to do 12 minutes a day. And I think with my knowledge of fascia, it's going to take me 12 months to get this moving properly. And nobody was more stunned than me when it took me 12 weeks. I mean, I was like, what? What? It flew in the face of everything I understood. And as you know, it became the seed that planted the MMIA program because it was true. It was usable. But what I didn't know was that every now and again, the difficulty I had with that shoulder when I was practicing, doing my movement practice or teaching or doing my, hands-on manual therapy was that I didn't have to be the victim of those awkward moments. All I have to do is pause, breathe, reposition, and then I could move. And it was that discovery in that short amount of time that it's so easy to override because we don't have the vocabulary and the repertoire for these subtle micro movement medicine pieces.
But it's not in the repertoire, is it? Because in the repertoire, it's all about linearity, planes of movement, and ranges of movement available. And that's what the baseline of all movement is configured around. And whereas what I love about our work is although your body went through huge surgical intervention to help you recover, I don't believe your arm was broken, although it probably felt very broken, but somebody went and saved it. And what they
Yeah,
did, they
true.
they intervened in a process that was occurring inside your body, and they took out all of the stuff that shouldn't be there and some extra bits just in case, and then put you back together in a certain way to allow your tissues to naturally recover. But because of that process, there is, of course, adaptation, which takes you out of the classical leverage, classical planes of movement, classical ranges of movement that you should be available to have because you're not a robot. And it puts you back into the biological world where you really truly live and exist and go, what can it do now? And not only what can it do, why can't it do something? And it lets us really recognize the true limitation or the true opportunity to restore efficient movement through it. So you now have a new 100%. It's completely different from what it was before, but it's still 100% capable to perform at 100% of where it is. And it was just making sure that's what was our focus, not returning to what it was before, not trying to imagine you never had surgery ever and try to restore it to exactly the same leverage, exactly the same planes of movement organization, and exactly the same range of movement or some limitation of. That didn't even enter into our head. That is not our approach at all because we don't see the body in those mechanical explanations. We see the body in this constantly adaptive state where it's always in flow so that it can change and alter accordingly, dependent on the life experience the fabric goes through.
And this is where refinement happens, right? Not in the big movements. And this second clip that we're going to look at really shows where refinement actually lives. And can you sort of talk us through this? Because the focus on this one was basically timing. That's always such a huge key. Responsiveness, so you're gauging as you go, but it's also about the small changes and the large effects. And I think one of the things that comes up a lot with micromovement magic is that people are stunned in two particular ways. And this is the feedback we get from our practitioners and teachers, right? That how come something so small is so hard sometimes, because it isn't necessarily easy to coordinate in that absolutely micro movement way. And secondly, how come something so small makes such a huge difference? And so what I wanted you to do, Paul, was talk us through this particular one that shows the subtle changes of transition. And, we looked at how we come up and off the ground. It wasn't about spring-loaded, balance on one hand. This is long before you start training in capoeira or anything like that. This was the whatever age and stage of fitness, pre and post hip replacement. I give this to my mum, God bless her, in her late 80s. How could talk us through what we did in this one?
Well, it's a life skill, isn't it? Sitting down. And we shouldn't become victims of sitting down and get stuck where we've ended up being for whatever reason. So getting off the floor shouldn't then not be then as a consequence an Olympic exercise. Like it shouldn't be so hard. But all too often we have to use such momentum, or we get ourselves trapped in our own form and limited how we get up. And it tends to look like somebody's really in trouble getting off the floor. So what we're exploring here is our own unique shape and the way we have a certain preference to transitioning our weight, and we direct ourselves gently. And it's in that gentle transition where you find your maximum capability. Because if you rush it, you'll miss the goal. It's like you miss that micro positioning that allows for that micro organization to create that maximal strength opportunity. You just go straight past it. It's like you've overcooked your egg you were boiling. On that micro minute, it should be just runny enough. You go beyond it, it's a hard-boiled one. And it's really important that you take the time to feel which side you prefer. Like we'll go from side to side. You might have more confidence on one side, and you approach it confidently and instinctively and intuitively, and you just go. You're not even recognizing you're doing it. You can just do it. But if you go to the other side, where sometimes the room, the environment, the position, the situation, whatever it is, requires you to go to your non-favorite, non-familiar side, then the movement sequence is often much more staggered or stuttery or less confident. And the timing is often not quite just so refined. And you find it much more physical in nature to do. It's much more intentional, very thought effort, yeah. And so it's recognizing that that's the reality, and making sure that even if you have to go to the side that it's not your favorite, that you do it with more appropriate positioning. So you access the way to get out and to the freedom of the next transition. And I think that's where a lot of us lose our way in life. We don't know how to transition from one direction to another because we're told to sit here, face that way, position ourselves, move that direction, do this movement so many times, then stop. But life is not about stopping. Like time is continuous. And so is movement. Like we're always in motion, even now. We're always in 100% motion, whatever we're doing, because we're alive. Although it doesn't look like we're moving, everything in us is alive and it's rippling and fluxing and moving and adapting just to being alive and the ebb and flow of life. So when we move in a much bigger way, if we haven't refined how we get to these changes and positions and transition opportunities, we can find ourselves in cul-de-sacs or obstacles or hurdles that just our lack of experience and lack of attention to the detail, we won't be expecting to get stuck. So getting off the floor is a great way of learning how your body truly can move and where its limitation and stresses are likely to be. So I encourage people to sit on the floor, because if we're going to go to the floor to do a lot of our exercises, we should know how to get there first. If you can't get there, how the hell are you going to get up? So if what you've done on the floor doesn't benefit you in the vertical world, why do exercises lying on your back? So knowing how to get to the ground and get off the ground is as important as what you do on the ground. So
Absolutely.
that's why it's so important from
Absolutely.
everybody, from the fittest and youngest to the eldest and more and less incapable. You need to know why you're going somewhere and what you're going to do when you get there. Can you get away from it in a timely fashion? And I love this movement where we're shifting, we're pushing. But again, it brings together an awful lot of the elements throughout all of the R's, and it makes you recognize their relevance and value in your lifestyle and movement quality.
Yeah,
And you go,
absolutely.
I'm rushing this one. There's no position for me to bound away. I push and I get stuck and I become rigid. So now there's no recoiling. So now I've created a pattern that I need to relieve. I need to release that somehow so I can restore another opportunity to maximize my opportunity and my options to move further. And then you refine that again. And it's all about using refine almost like an evaluation. How do I truly move? And how do I refine how I do it? And then go through the R's to find out the opportunity to make the relevant adaptations and corrections, and then go try and refine it again.
But I love what you said, because you said, how do I move truly? And this takes us through, because I also, and I was the model here, have an injury to my right knee, a skiing
Did you do?
injury. Actually, somebody injured it as a teacher corrected me in a yoga pose and damaged my knee permanently, which then was a victim on the ski slopes. And now I'm struggling with it. I have ever since. So what was so powerful about this for me, Paul, was this being encouraged not to do the position right and show how efficient I was at achieving it. It was, how do you honestly, because movement doesn't lie,
Right.
right? So how do you honestly get up from the ground and come down? And it was almost like you are encouraging me to undo my ability to do it, to really reveal the truth of how my body wanted to, get
Yep.
there. And so that we could then go in and refine in a very truthful, quiet, whispering way. And it ultimately made me feel very, very safe, because there was a part of me thinking, oh my God, I've got to do this perfectly. I'm on film. This is our program. Da, da, da. And you were like, no, this is about finding honest movement. Let's reveal it and work with that. And I think that was literally the superpower. And as we move into our third and final clip on here, that wherever you are, the outcome of refinement is this completely honest movement so that your body feels safe rather than pressured to perform beyond its truth, because movement can't lie, right? So what we're finding is, rather than momentum to make it look good, or big effort and strength to force the outcome that we're looking for, we go back to this quiet efficiency, this effortlessness, this natural adaptability that that reveals what refinement looks like in real life. Yeah, it's
Yep.
another thing. It's a different animal to what we're used to.
Well, I hark back to my own origins, if you like, of my movement experience, and they are based in martial arts. And
Yeah,
when we come to the exercise that you're watching, which is our third clip, you'll notice it's a vertical one where we're utilizing ourselves on a ball, and you're kneeling on the ball, and your relationship with that prop on the surface of the floor, it really matters, because what that's going to do is going to make you pay attention to how you keep and retain those relationships in the movement experience, rather than
yeah,
lose them. So you lose contact with the floor, lose contact with the ball, and lose a control of yourself to achieve one phase of a movement. And in this one, you're going up and coming down. So, like I say, I hark back to my origins, and which is where this, for me, has become my primary evaluation of my own quality and others around me when we talk about
yeah,
refinement. Because if you're in this position, we used to train so low, like when you said lunging, my front knee would be bent so my thigh is level with my knee, and my back leg would be as long as it could possibly be. And you weren't to come up or down. You had to transition, bring your legs underneath you, and then you go out again. It's known as this geisha walk in the martial arts world. And it was just learning you how to transition and maintain efficiency of your weight through the transition of switching directions or switching postures, but very, very deep, really low. And they would go from wide to very narrow to wide to very narrow. And they would undulate like the water, like a river flowing. And then you had to take that and then bring it super narrow. So you could balance, you could kick, and you could defend sweeping or apply a sweep. And then they would go into rhythmic bouncing, and it'd be very dynamic. So this collaboration of understanding how to create a foundation, how to narrow that foundation, how to make that narrowness and that depth available to you dynamic and responsive and available to adapt in any given moment of any given requirement, is how I then created this one for the global audience to go, wow, what is our one universal thing we need to be able to do as a human being? And that is, in a vertical world, not look like we're struggling. Because we tend to rely upon width of base and compression of shape to maintain this statuesque presentation of ourselves.
It's total. I mean, we do even yoga. We stand with feet hip width apart. It's standard. And you're holding this gait that you would, I mean, the only time you'd even use it, in fact, you wouldn't, is standing at the traffic lights waiting to cross the road or on a zebra crossing or something. But you
even
still
then,
wouldn't.
you're going to be leaning to one side or chatting to somebody else, right? The only people that truly stand with feet hip distance apart, yes, are soldiers. When they're outside on parade and they're standing to attention in a very rigid and very stationary way, and they are holding themselves in a compressive load because they're not to move. They do not want any movement at all, which is why they often pass out when they get too tired. And it's very fatiguing. It is not standard to do that in a very uniquely asymmetrical body, but it is standardized in an industry that wants to unify us and make us symmetrical and make us work to these data profiled organizations of range of movement, linearity, and planes of carpentry and engineering, which humans are not. So what this movement shows is how real movement occurs from a real person in a real life situation. And how do you get from the floor and get yourself up towards the ceiling and go up to the sky and descend again without using momentum and then come crashing down? And what it shows is a sense of movement quality, a movement tempo and rhythm, and a real reflection of your ability to change direction, change tempo, and change intensity on purpose, because it gets tiring the more you do it. Like any walk would. Any walk up hills gets more tiring the longer the journey goes on. Any carrying of weight, if you're lifting shopping bags or you're lifting weights or you're doing anything where you're asking to have durability to a refined movement, it will start to fatigue you. And what this particular situation offers you is that opportunity to develop and refine and recognize, how well do I move in this configuration? Because if I can't do this, the rest of my movements are going to be very, very challenged and inconveniently limited. And that's what really opens the door to why we then do the rest of the micromanagement organization within Myofascial Magic in Action. Because what this reveals is your true capabilities with your own shape and your own unique asymmetry. There's no lying. You cannot avoid the truth. And that's a great reveal. It's almost like a breath of fresh air. You go, oh my God, I don't have to stand this way. I don't have to conform. I just have to understand how I move and how I can move. And then the world's your oyster.
It's a relief. It was a relief. I remember, and I had to kind of come to terms with the injury in my knee and love it and let it be that way and honor it and do the other side. And I remember when we did it, that the videographer was kind of looking at me as if to say, oh, because it looked like it was really easy, and it so isn't. And then you said to him, come and see if you can do it. And he's 20 years younger than me, and he found it hard.
Runner, right? Was the runner.
And he was and a skier.
That's right.
And I loathe skiing, but that's my thing. And he was very much more respectful afterwards. I think your only regret was that wasn't on film, if I recall.
I said to myself, it's a shame we didn't tape that, right? Because we'd have got somebody who was scorning your attempt when yours was completely true and honest, and he didn't see how it could be so difficult because of his own experience of exercising in his life. And he's quite a tall guy, isn't he? And when you see the instant realization of, oh my God, this is why I'm recording this for the course, because this requirement is not only powerful, it is essential. So you have retained the longevity of the thing you really enjoy doing without becoming a victim of doing it poorly so often. And he was really like, oh my God, I want to do more of this. And so he did. He did plenty more of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it brought together, and we love our videographer to pieces. The key concept, if you like, of refinement is really more it's taking something away, isn't it? It's getting out of your own way, less interference, much better timing, much clearer perception. And I think a really common practitioner mistake is that there's a focus on performance of the protocol rather than the refinement of the individual profile through this honest expression of how it really is. And I think really one of the keystones of what we're talking about is letting go of over coaching, over cueing, over correcting, and bringing in this possibility that it's, I know I sound like I'm not being able to say this, but it's like it like replaces the consequence of rigidity and dependency and loss of natural intelligence, where you, as you said at the beginning, you hardwire dysfunction into everyday movement because you become very, very good at consistently doing something poorly and competent at doing it incompetently. And we get kind of, you and I get rich at our bodywork tables, and we actually don't want to do that. It's very much about bringing ourselves through this refinement, isn't it, into a place where perception becomes primary, but then you know what you're looking for, you know what you're perceiving, you interpret it appropriately for that person. And most training doesn't reach that. I'm sorry. You and I have done so much between us. I find it very rare that this is, I would say this, but I stand by it. And progress, you and I see it so many places, Paul. We see it in high performance work, in ballet, in theatre, in dance. We see it in elite athletics, swimming, running, track and field events, golf, tennis. You and I, we've got clients in all these fields that progress stalls because the client becomes defensive rather than being empowered by the practitioner to naturally express their refinement, right?
It's a choice, right? And unfortunately, the world makes poor choices based on favoritism and commercialization. And this expectation to do it all the time and to achieve it and be fit and be strong and be powerful and all these adjectives that explain whatever you're trying to achieve. But we don't look at the path and the hindsight that's been attained over these millions of years of people doing exactly the same things since time immemorial. But we've now got the experience and understanding of why things go a certain way, that we can give people the foresight to not have to travel a path well trodden. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's brilliant to have athletic performance. Yes, it's fine to just be in your own home, minding your own peace. However, if you require rehabilitation, that's because you've allowed your body to become threatened and reactive to the way you ask it to perform. Not teach it how to be responsive and adaptive when you're performing. And that's the difference. And that's why we have jobs in both ends of the spectrum. We have it to deal with chronic situations that have been well established by every age and fitness in the marketplace. However, we try to teach people how to not need that service at all, which I know goes in the face of the industry because we want people to need injuries. We want them to need recovery. But the very way is if they need rehabilitation, they didn't learn or weren't educated or are not taught how to recover in motion. And I say this before, and we've always had these funny conversations, haven't we? But you'll never see a cat or a leopard or an elephant wear a pedometer. Like, they don't care how many steps they do a day. They care that wherever they're going there on purpose. They're going there on purpose to eat, to meet, to drink, to go and explore. They're off on their life. We don't need to know how many press-ups we flip into. You don't see an ape lift weights and go, oh my God, I've reached my personal best. It's just an ape and it's eating and interacting with its community. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? There's just this expectation to meet other people's perception of what it is to be healthy and happy. And I'm not sure the both things are in the same set of hands. Like, you can be happy and unhealthy. You can be very, very healthy and completely unhappy. And I think it's finding a balance of both. And what refining does and what the whole of our program facilitates is recognition of who you are, why you use yourself the way you do, and the opportunities to make sure you can reorganize yourself in such a way that whatever you want to do with yourself and wherever you want to do it, you can do it for as long as possible, managing the consequences or avoiding a lot of the pitfalls that lay ahead of you. And that's our gift. Our gift is just trying to give you the foresight based upon the hindsight that we've had to go and collect over our careers and experiences.
I think this is exactly what we focus on in MMIA, is developing this ability to perceive and refine at this level. It's not about doing more. It really is about seeing more clearly, and that's what we train.
Yeah, do less better. Do less, but do it better, and do that more frequently, and then see where it takes you. Because if you're getting hurt in your exercises, that's a problem. I'm sorry. I mean, we used to have torture chambers to do that on purpose, to get information out of people or penalize people if they've done something wrong. And yet now it's part of our healthcare system, is to injure ourselves in the guise of getting fitter, stronger, healthier. And that can't be true, because it's just one business feeding another. Instead of looking after the community, saying, why are you doing what you're doing? And is it necessary? And if it is necessary, good. If you need to do it mentally, and you need to lift 200 pounds of weight above your head while you do 20 squats, fine, do it. But it's not healthy. It just makes you happy. But that's very different. And that's okay to know that. But you have to be able to refine that. Refine the way you lift 200 pounds above your head in a squat for as many as you can. But refine it so you don't become a victim of it.
Absolutely. And I think for many of us as practitioners, that knowledge is mistaken for perception. You know, somebody that can name the origin and insertion of every muscle attached to every bone and name every bone is mistaken as for an anatomist, which, doesn't add up. But I think refinement doesn't mean performing the thing better according to the numbers. It means expressing something more appropriately to your own state. And I think this overcoaching and overcorrecting, we all can't help it. We as practitioners or trainers, we're victims of the industry that teaches us these rules of mechanics, as you said, these rules of symmetry, of planes of motion. And as such, we're losing our access to natural movement and losing the emphasis on how that is expressed. But that also means we're losing the ability to restore powerful movement patterns that allow us to refine completely naturally as we age.
Well, listen, this body will last as long as it can, depending on how you use it, as well as you can. It will often last longer when you abuse it. It will often last a lot shorter when you try to ask it to be as healthy as possible. It's a lottery ticket. However, what is for certain, there are many people out there that are overqualified and undercapable, guiding people's experiences. There are also people that are underqualified and more than capable, doing magnificent jobs, and everybody along the various spectrums. But what individuals have to do when they walk into a facility or into an arena and say, why am I here? What is it I really want my body to do once I'm here? When I leave here, how will it benefit from that? Because if it doesn't benefit from what it experiences in a facility, then why do it? And if you are going to benefit, make sure that you enjoy it properly and you don't suffer because of that attained incompetent movement.
Well, I think in all of this, what I have to say is that I just want to reassure people, MMIA is not an alternative movement modality. I just want to really clarify. It is really about prehab in a way, isn't it? We teach MMIA, myofascial magic in action, the program, for practitioners of every stripe. We have swim teachers, personal training coaches, track and field coaches. We have big game coaches, Pilates teachers, yoga teachers. We have manual therapists of all stripes that really just get so much out of having this detail in their repertoire, do they not?
Of course they do. And there are so many cool things out there. There are some great movement options out there. And we can explore them all. You should find the ones that suit your shape and your configuration and your personality. And we should all do that and find the ones that complement each other. So you may have a few that you like to do, or maybe you just have one or two, or maybe you just have your favorite one. But either way, you shouldn't need rehabilitation, because if you need to be repaired because of something you're doing a lot, then it's not doing you that much good physically, mentally maybe. So it's important that it's not that we're prehab we say that you shouldn't need rehabilitation at all. And what MMIA truly does, it teaches you how to recover in motion, in present time. So tomorrow, your body organizes itself in such a way that it remembers what you did yesterday well, but hasn't suffered because of it. It has benefited, and you're able to perform again. And go back to our animal world. In the wild, you either survive or you thrive. And we should be thriving in our communities, not just surviving from day to day and spending a lot of our money on insurances and rehabilitation and recovery strategies. We should learn how to organize our body so it repairs itself in real time so that we can enjoy a fulfilling life as often as possible for as long as possible.
And on that note, where we often think that some knowledge is mistaken for perception, but actually we all have the power to perceive, to perceive, to sense almost in advance, right? When we build in these very subtle facilities. Or no, I'm going to rephrase that. I'm going to say when we awaken, because that's what the refinement is for me, or was for me. It is for me every day, but certainly was from these clips that we've included, was a reawakening of what I thought I'd lost or thought I'd forgotten. And that's what was so revelatory for me. And I love it. I love this part of the course.
I think you're right. I think that's the key, that it reveals, and it is an awakening of something that you should have already known, but for whatever reason, it just got forgotten in your...
Well, it got overridden. It got overridden with all the techniques that I've learned. And I'm not making those techniques wrong. This is about breathing back into how am I today, and having the facility and the wisdom and the tried and tested method to pinpoint that adjustment and begin to trust myself more. And the truth is, the whole experience of the myofascial magic in action sequence left me feeling safer in my own body and just excited to share that. That's our motivation for all of this.
Safer and more capable. And that's the key.
Yeah.
Like nothing should be out of anybody's reach. Everything's attainable. But just look at the way you're preparing yourself to go and attain whatever it is you're aiming for. And MMIA is one of the most important, essential elements and set of ingredients in anybody's movement toolkit. And I wish you all the very best as you use them wisely. And if you need any further guidance, don't hesitate to reach out and let us help you in any way we possibly can.
So you'll find information about myofascial magic in action underneath this podcast, and you'll also find it in the show notes underneath the YouTube version. And you can always write to us at myofascialmagic.com to learn or have your questions answered. And we can't wait to share it with you because it's magic ingredients.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.